My husband suggested something so wild I never imagined. But that night changed everything. He wanted me to be intimate with 3 men. And to my surprise, I couldn't resist the idea. You won't believe what happens next as the night unfolds in ways none of us saw coming. I still remember the evening when everything changed. It was a sultry summer night, and I had just come home from work, exhausted from the day's demands. My husband, Aiden, was already sitting in the living room, a glass of whiskey in hand. His eyes were locked on me with an intensity one hadn't seen before. There was something different about his demeanor that night, something that made the air feel thick with anticipation. As I sat down next to him, I could feel his eyes on me, studying my every move. "How was work?" he asked, his voice unusually soft, almost seductive. I shrugged, letting out a tired sigh. The usual, just long and tiring. But Aiden wasn't paying attention to my words. Instead, he placed his hand gently on my thigh. I was used to his affection, but tonight there was a different energy between us. His fingers trailed up my leg, and I turned to look at him, feeling my heart race. His eyes held a hunger, a desire that felt new and exciting. "I've been thinking," he began, leaning in closer, his voice barely a whisper, "about us, about what we need." His words sent a tremor through me, and I shifted in my seat, unsure where this was going. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Aiden smiled, his hand moving higher, his breath warm against my ear. "I think we need something different, something to spice things up between us." I swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Spice things up," I repeated, unsure of what he meant. He nodded, his lips brushing against my neck. "I want to see you with other men," he whispered. His words sent shock waves through my body. For a moment, I was speechless, my mind reeling from what he had just said. I pulled back, searching his face for any sign of hesitation or regret. But all I found was desire, raw and unfiltered. "You want to see me with other men?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Aiden nodded, his eyes dark with lust. "Yes, but not just any men. I want you to be with 3 strong, handsome black men. I want to see you lose yourself in their arms, feel their touch, and experience something new, something wild." My mind raced with a million thoughts. I had never imagined something like this, never considered that Aiden would even entertain the idea of sharing me with other men. But as I looked into his eyes, I could see the excitement there, the thrill of the forbidden. And strangely, a part of me felt intrigued by the idea, curious about what it would feel like to be desired by men other than my husband, to be touched by their hands, kissed by their lips. I shifted uncomfortably, my body betraying me as a wave of heat washed over me. I don't know, Aiden," I stammered, unsure of how to respond. Aiden reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I know it sounds crazy, but I promise you, it'll be incredible. You'll love it. And I'll be right there watching you, admiring you. There's nothing to be afraid of." His words washed over me, and I found myself considering the possibility. Could I really do this? Could I really be with 3 other men while my husband watched? The idea felt so taboo, so wrong, but at the same time, it ignited a spark deep inside me, one that I hadn't felt in a long time. I looked into Aiden's eyes, searching for any sign of hesitation, but all I found was unwavering confidence. He wanted this. He wanted me to do this. And the thought of pleasing him, of giving him what he wanted, sent a rush of adrenaline through me. "Okay," I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. "I'll do it." Aiden's eyes lit up with excitement, and he leaned in to kiss me, his lips soft and warm against mine. "You won't regret this," he promised, his voice filled with anticipation. The days leading up to the night Aiden had planned were filled with a strange mix of excitement and nerves. Every time I thought about what was coming, my stomach fluttered with a mixture of anxiety and desire. I tried to push the thoughts away, tried to focus on my usual routine, but the anticipation was always there, lingering in the back of my mind, teasing me with the possibilities of what was to come. And then finally, the night arrived, Aiden had arranged everything. The men he had chosen were already at the hotel when we arrived, waiting for us. As we walked into the room, my palms were sweaty with nerves. But as soon as I saw them, 3 tall, muscular men, their dark skin gleaming in the soft light of the room, something inside me shifted. Each one of them exuded power and strength, and I could feel their eyes on me, undressing me with their gazes. My breath caught in my throat as I stood there, suddenly feeling exposed and vulnerable, but also strangely empowered. Aiden stood beside me, his hand on the small of my back, guiding me forward. "Don't be shy," he whispered in my ear, his voice laced with excitement. "This is for you. I want you to enjoy it." I glanced up at him, my heart racing, and saw the hunger in his eyes. He wanted this. He wanted to see me with these men. And as nervous as I was, I couldn't deny that a part of me wanted it too. Slowly, I took a step forward, my body trembling with anticipation. The men watched me, their eyes dark with desire. And as I moved closer to them, I could feel the tension in the room thickening. I was standing at the edge of something new, something exhilarating. And I was ready to dive in. The first man reached out his hand, brushing against my arm, sending a jolt of electricity through my body. His touch was firm yet gentle, and I found myself leaning into him, my breath hitching as his fingers trailed up my arm. His eyes met mine, and I could see the desire there, the raw, unfiltered need that matched my own. Before I knew it, his lips were on mine, soft and warm. His kiss was gentle at first, but growing more insistent as he pulled me closer. My heart raced as I melted into him, his strong arms wrapping around me, holding me tight. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, his muscles flexing beneath my hands as I ran them over his chest. Behind me, I could feel Aiden watching, his eyes burning into my skin. I glanced over my shoulder, catching his gaze, and the look on his face sent a rush of excitement through me. He wanted this. He wanted to see me like this, wanted to watch me lose myself in the arms of another man. The second man stepped forward, his hand sliding around my waist as he pressed his body against mine from behind. I could feel the heat of his breath on my neck, his lips brushing against my skin as he kissed me softly. My body trembled with desire. My mind was spinning with the intensity of it all. I had never felt anything like this before. This overwhelming sensation of being desired, of being wanted by not just one man, but 3. It was intoxicating, and I could feel myself getting lost in it. My body responded to their every touch, every kiss. Aiden's voice broke through the haze of desire that had clouded my mind. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I love seeing you like this." His words sent a surge of confidence through me, and I turned my attention back to the men in front of me. Their touches became more insistent as the 3 men drew closer, their bodies surrounding me. I could feel the heat radiating off them, engulfing me in a warmth I hadn't realized I craved. My breath quickened as their hands explored my body, each touch sending a new ripple of sensation through me. There was a strange sense of empowerment knowing I was the center of their attention, the object of their desire. The man in front of me pressed his hand to the small of my back, pulling me closer until our bodies were flush against each other. I could feel every inch of him hard and ready, his breath coming out in hot, ragged bursts against my cheek as he leaned in to kiss me again. This time, the kiss wasn't gentle, it was fierce, hungry, like he was starving for me. His tongue parted my lips, deepening the kiss, and I could feel the need in his touch and the way his hands gripped my hips, as if he couldn't get enough. Behind me, the second man's hand slid up my sides, his fingers tracing the curve of my waist before moving higher, cupping my breasts through the thin fabric of my dress. His touch was firm, commanding, and I gasped as his thumbs brushed over my nipples, sending a jolt of pleasure straight to my core. I could feel the tension building inside me, a tight coil of desire that was winding tighter with every second. Odin was still there, watching everything unfold. His presence grounded me, even as I felt myself slipping into the intoxicating pull of the moment. His eyes were locked on mine, and I could see the raw hunger in his gaze, the way he was enjoying this just as much as I was. He wasn't just watching, He was part of this intense, electrifying connection that was building between me and these men. "You're so beautiful," the third man whispered, his voice low and smooth as he stepped closer. His fingers trailed down my arm in a slow, deliberate caress. "I've been waiting to touch you, to feel how soft your skin is." I shivered at his words, my body responding instinctively to his touch. I leaned back into him as his arms wrapped around my waist from behind. The way they touched me, the way they handled me, it was as though they had claimed me completely. I found myself sinking into the sensation, surrendering to the overwhelming intensity of it all. Every inch of my skin was alive, tingling with pleasure as their hands roamed freely over my body. The man behind me gently nipped at my neck, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin as his hands moved lower, sliding over my hips before coming to rest on my thighs. I gasped as his fingers slipped beneath the hem of my dress, teasing the bare skin of my legs. I could feel the heat pooling between my thighs, the ache of desire becoming almost unbearable. "Do you like this?" he murmured against my skin, his voice dark and seductive. "Tell us how it feels." I love it," I whispered, my voice trembling with the weight of my desire. I've never felt anything like this before. And it was true. This was unlike anything I had ever experienced. There was an intensity to it, a rawness that I hadn't known I was missing. The way they touched me, the way they made me feel, it was like they were unlocking something deep inside me, something primal and fierce. The man in front of me smiled, his hands sliding up my back to tangle in my hair as he pulled me in for another kiss. This time, it was slower, more deliberate. His lips moved against mine with a teasing gentleness that contrasted sharply with the hunger I felt inside. His free hand cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheek as he deepened the kiss. I moaned softly into his mouth, lost in the sensation. Behind me, the man's fingers were still teasing the skin of my thighs, inching closer to where I wanted him most, but never quite giving me what I needed. My breath came out in ragged gasps as I felt him teasing me, drawing out the moment, building the tension until it was almost unbearable. "Please," I whispered, my voice barely audible but filled with need. "Please don't stop." The man chuckled softly against my neck, his breath warm against my skin as he pressed a soft kiss to my shoulder. "We're not going to stop," he promised, his voice a low growl. "We're just getting started." I felt the knot of desire tighten in my core, growing more and more intense with every passing second. My body was trembling now, caught between the overwhelming need for release and the delicious anticipation of what was to come. The man in front of me kissed me one last time before pulling back slightly, his dark eyes locking onto mine as he smiled. "You're incredible," he murmured, his voice filled with admiration. "I can't wait to see how you feel." With a quick, fluid motion, he slipped the straps of my dress off my shoulders, letting the fabric fall to the floor in a soft heap around my feet. I was left standing in nothing but my underwear, exposed and vulnerable. But instead of feeling shy or embarrassed, I felt powerful. The way they looked at me, the way their eyes roamed over my body with unfiltered desire, it made me feel alive, like I was the most beautiful woman in the world. I could feel Aiden's eyes on me too, his gaze filled with pride and lust as he watched me surrender to the moment. His approval, his encouragement, fueled my desire, made me want this even more. The second man stepped closer now, his hands on my waist as he guided me toward the bed. "Lie down," he whispered, his voice gentle but commanding. "We're going to make you feel so good." I obeyed, my heart racing with anticipation as I lay back on the soft sheets, my body trembling with desire. The three men surrounded me, their hands and lips everywhere, touching, kissing, teasing. It was sensory overload. Their combined touches made my head spin, my body ache with need. One of them kissed me deeply, his hand tangled in my hair as he pressed his body against mine, his muscles hard and warm beneath my hands. Another man kissed my neck, his lips trailing down to my chest, while the third ran his hands over my legs, his fingers dancing over my skin in a slow, torturous caress. I couldn't think, couldn't focus on anything but the pleasure they were giving me, the way my body was responding to their every touch. I was lost in it, completely consumed by the sensations coursing through me. And I never wanted it to end. Odin's voice broke through the haze of pleasure, his words soft but filled with emotion. "You're incredible," he whispered. "I love seeing you like this." His approval, his desire, only made everything more intense, more thrilling. I wanted to please him, wanted to give him what he wanted. Knowing he was watching me, enjoying every moment, made the pleasure even more overwhelming. The man at my side leaned down to kiss me again, his lips soft and warm against mine as his hand slid down my body. "You're so beautiful," he murmured between kisses, his voice thick with desire. "I want to make you feel even better." And just when I thought I couldn't take any more, just when I thought the pleasure had reached its peak, they pushed me over the edge, sending me spiraling into a world of bliss so intense I couldn't even form words. My body trembled, my breath came out in ragged gasps, and I felt myself let go completely, surrendering to the moment, to the pleasure, to the intense, overwhelming sensation of being completely and utterly desired. It was more than I ever expected, more than I could have imagined. As the intensity of the moment began to fade, I lay there, breathless and utterly spent, surrounded by the warmth of the three men who had taken me to places I had never imagined. Their touches softened, becoming gentle caresses as we all began to come down from the high of the experience. My mind was still reeling, but I felt a strange sense of satisfaction, a deep fulfillment that lingered in the quiet aftermath. It wasn't just the physical pleasure, it was the emotional connection. The feeling of being desired so completely and knowing that Aiden had wanted this for me just as much as I had. I glanced over at him, and the look of pride and love in his eyes was everything I needed to see. Odin moved closer to me, his hand brushing the side of my face tenderly as he leaned down to kiss me softly. "You were amazing," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "I knew this would be unforgettable, but you were more than I ever dreamed." His words filled me with a deep sense of love and gratitude. And as I lay there, surrounded by these men and the man I loved, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about satisfying some fantasy. It was about trust, about giving myself over completely, knowing that I was cherished and adored. We had stepped into something new together, and it had only brought us closer.